On to our third topic. The death of a toddler while in foster care has thrust the state's Department of Children and Families into the media spotlight yet again. But there's one key detail that news outlets differed on from the outset: whether to identify the foster mother at the center of the case. Investigators still aren't sure what happened inside this Auburn foster home that led to the death of Evelina Conway Coxon and left a second toddler in dire condition. But the fact that the two children were in the care of a troubled state agency makes it a major story.
This case is once again putting the spotlight on DCF.
Governor Charlie Baker says he wants to examine the culture of the DCF offices.
While the Department of Children and Families is under scrutiny, it's unclear if the foster mother has done anything wrong, raising the question of whether to identify her or not.
No charges have been filed at this time, but police say the foster mother here is cooperating with the investigation.
Initially, several news outlets, including Channel 7, the Boston Herald, and the Boston Globe, did not identify the foster mother by name, but others did.
Neighbors identify the foster mom living here as Kim Malpass.
5 Investigates has discovered a long history of calls to police from this address where Kim Malpass has been licensed by the Department of Children and Families to care.
Channel 5 went one step further, adding this disturbing detail found in those police call records.
And an investigation into an allegation of rape.
That raises the possibility of 3 victims in this terrible case, making the question of whether to name names even trickier. Justin, what do you think?
I think that this is interesting because this touches on an issue that a lot of media organizations see now with sort of the long history that the web has created. You can be charged for something, those charges can be dropped, but that story can live on forever on the internet. And so I think that there's a precedent for wanting to be very careful in situations like this. Newspapers obviously have, all news organizations have a history of not naming things like rape victims. Certain victims or certain people in whatever crimes, we have policies around that. So I can understand the want to be very careful here. And again, until someone is actually charged, I think you have to be very careful because already the implication here is that there's some sort of wrongdoing.
John, what did you guys do?
Offhand, I don't know. I know that Channel 2 has identified the name. You just did.
You just did.
I don't see a problem with that. It's a matter of public record. I don't see any reason why mentions of the name prior to any charges being brought shouldn't be accompanied by, comma, who has not been charged with any crime. Perhaps that would help deal with your issue of the permanency of the coverage, and anyone looking at it would say, oh, she was not, at least at that point, charged with any crime. That seems more fair than just throwing it out there and letting it hang. Perhaps that addresses the concern.
What about bringing in this rape allegation that was apparently made in a call from that house? Do you guys think that's fair game?
I don't know whether it's fair game or not, but I do think that it may help explain why some news outlets, and particularly the Globe, have not gone ahead and identified everybody. You know, under normal circumstances, you would identify a person whose foster child died in her home, whether there were any charges or not, whether there was even any allegation of wrongdoing or not. But I understand that this has been, I understand Brian McGrory, the editor of the Globe, was on WGBH radio the other day and said this has been a difficult discussion in the newsroom. We don't know all the reasons that have gone into this, and I would kind of defer to the judgment of people who do know more.
So I would be inclined not to, but I take John's point that there's a way to report it in which you make it clear that she has not been charged. And here's, the rape allegation is one part of it, but what gets me is that whole phone call. The way that was reported is that there were 64 phone calls made to the house. Well, I walked away thinking, well, how in the world did a child get placed with a crazy woman that had 64 calls? Then we find out the calls are of varying natures. They had nothing, many of them, to do with anything that was dangerous or serious. So I find that just horrific. So already in my mind, you did not describe for me or detail for me what the calls meant. So there's all kinds of misinformation leading to, because her name is out there, that her being charged or people being felt that people feeling as though she is guilty of something.
Just
if she's
briefly,
not been charged.
I think we've talked about it on Beat the Press before. I understand the urge to be delicate with the names of people who are alleged or confirmed victims of sexual assault, but in this case, as I understand it, and I don't have the details that the people covering this at the Globe or elsewhere do either, Dan, as I understand it, this allegation of sexual assault was in no way involved with the
Exactly. That's my
with
point.
the death of the child. So,
that is my point.
So why? I'm not sure that. So I guess I agree with you.
Yes, yeah, I guess you do.
Are you happy about that, or are you angry?
No, I'm just saying that's my point about those calls.
So why? So
I
think we're making a different point. Actually, I don't understand why you would need to exercise the same sensitivity as if you were dealing in a vacuum with a sexual assault case.
Well, I don't understand either, but it sounds like this could lead to the revelation of the names of people who were victims of sexual assault. It's unclear.
And I think you err on the side of caution.
Yes.
If you do, if you're not going to do what John said, and people didn't, to Justin's point, then you err on the side of caution. Don't mention her name till you know.
Some did.
You know.
Some did.